Hi everyone. Today I wanted to check in with a quick video about the fourth opera of the Ring series that I recently had a chance to see performed by Washington National Opera at Kennedy Center here in Washington D.C. The performance I saw was on Friday, May 6th. Here is the cover of the playbill, and rather than go through the whole cast, just going to show it to you once here. This is a great cast. The conductor was Phillippe Auguin, and the director was Francesca Zambello. So I'm going to go through I'm going to try to go through the synopsis of the opera really quickly, even though a lot happened in this last opera. This is where the whole previous three operas sort of culminate with a dramatic conclusion. And so where we had left off in Siegfried was Siegfried had actually awakened Brunhilde on her fiery mountaintop, and they had, proclaimed their sort of instant love for each other. And so where we pick up with Götterdämmerung, which is the fourth opera, which means in English the Twilight of the Gods, Brunhilde and Siegfried awaken from their night, and he needs to go out. He's this heroic figure. He's sort of archetypical heroic, and so he is. Brunhilde realizes he's not going to just be happy hanging out with her all the time, and so she sends him off on adventures, even though she's sort of reluctant to do that, and he is going out to accomplish this sort of thing, and he gives her the ring, which he had won in the previous opera from the dragon/giant Fafner. So as a token of his love for her, he gives her the ring, and so off he goes. Meanwhile, the Norns they're the first time they've been mentioned before, I think, in the operas, but this is the first time they're actually seen, and they are three women who twist ropes of fate. And in the production that I saw, which was in the American production, it was sort of computer digitalized circuits and things like this, and what they do is they weave the ropes of destiny through time, and so they are having trouble with a particular rope, and the rope of destiny ends up fraying and breaking, and they are terrified and run screaming to the earth demigod Erda. So to me, I interpreted this to being like, okay, this is the threatened end of time coming soon, because the world has gone out of balance. So let me just run through the plot real quick, and then I'll talk a little bit more about that too. So what ends up happening is there's another family called the Gibbetjung, and the brother's name is Gunther, and the sister is Gutruna, and then they have a half brother, Hagen, who is actually the son of Alberic, who's the original dwarf who stole the Nibelung, who stole the gold to begin with from the Rhine, and he ended up raping a woman and having this kid Hagen, who is now a man. Hagen is this family's trying to figure out ways to increase their power, and Hagen's like, oh, okay, well, I know who's got a magic ring, and so they figure out, oh, well, he's heroic, he could marry Gutruna. Well, Gutruna's like, well, if he's so heroic, surely he's got somebody else, or has already, had lots of opportunities. And so Hagen says, yeah, but remember, we have that potion that will cause people to lose their memories. And then they actually think Brunhilde has the ring on the mountaintop. And I think that's what they think. I'm not actually sure about that. But anyway, so to get... they want to win her for Gunther, but they know that he's not heroic. He won't be able to go through the fire, but they know Siegfried would, and that Siegfried would be able to go through the fire and bring Brunhilde for Gunther. So that's the plot. Meanwhile, and that's where we are. then, meanwhile, Siegfried actually, having been sent out on heroic quests by Brunhilde, comes across them in their home, comes to their home, and so he is talking with them or whatever. They end up giving him that potion. Gutruna gives him that potion. He completely forgets about Brunhilde, that he ever knew her or who she is even, and instantly falls in love with Gutruna. Well, then it's pretty easy pickings because he's, kind of adult, really, in a way. I mean, his character, I'll talk about more in a minute too. He's just sort of like, you give him a quest and he's like ready to go. So they're like, oh, we need to get Gunther this wife, and she's on a mountaintop surrounded by fire that only a hero can go through. And he was like, oh, no problem, I can do that. So he winds up using the Tarnhelm, which is that helmet that can let people change their shapes. He ends up using that in order to look like Gunther, and he would still be able to go through the fire, but he would look like Gunther. So Brunhilde would think it was Gunther, and so he ends up doing this, and he ends up this scenes with that are just so kind of disturbing because she doesn't know. She thinks it's Gunther, so she thinks it's this odd man that's managed to come through the fire to get her. He overpowers her and does take the ring from her. Oh yeah, so earlier when I was confused, she does actually have the ring because Siegfried gave it to her, so she has it. So Hagen knew that somehow. I don't remember exactly how he knew that, but anyway, he knew. So overpowers her, and like it's going to rape her in a way, and so it's like, ew. And as it turns out, he uses his sword, and he doesn't assault her only because of his vow that he made with Gunther, that they're blood brothers. So he knows that would be like a wrong thing to do to his blood brother friend, as opposed to just a wrong thing to do. But I digress. Well, so in the meantime, in the course of the night, I gathered that Gunther replaced Siegfried, the real Gunther replaced Siegfried, and Siegfried came back and was going to get married to Gutruna, and so then they come dragging Brunhilde back. Oh, I left out one incredibly important part, because before Siegfried actually got to Brunhilde, one of her Valkyrie sisters, came to her, kind of begging her basically to give away the ring, to destroy the ring and to give the ring back to the Rhine maidens. And Brunhilde was like, no, because this is my wedding ring, and this is what, I'm keeping it, basically. So see, that was sort of, that was kind of odd until I gave it a little more thought, and I realized, okay, well, first of all, she's under the power of the ring at that point, so it wouldn't just be easy to give up. And secondly, the gods had rejected her, and now she barely had been woken up, and they came to her wanting to manipulate her still, whenever they had really washed their hands of her and left her to her own devices. And so she just basically flat out refuses, and so her sister is totally distraught. Wotan didn't send her because it's apparent that Wotan has given up, because her sister, the other Valkyrie, tells her that Wotan has sent the heroes of Valhalla with axes, and they have actually chopped down the world tree, and they have used its wood. They have piled its wood around Valhalla, so that's sort of presaging what's to come. And so really, to me, that tells me that Wotan knew the end was coming soon, and was preparing for it. Meanwhile, the Valkyrie, his sister, was actually the other gods were panicking, trying to intervene still. So. Anyway, I'm going to run out of time really quickly. Like I said, a lot happens in this opera, and I'm skipping over tons of yummy, good stuff that's so good and so worth talking about. But I try to keep my videos to 15 minutes, and so I'm going to try to do that. But anyway, Brunhilde, she gets back. They all arrive back at the Givertring house, or household manor, I guess you could call it. And Brunhilde sees the ring on Siegfried's finger, because remember, as he was disguised as Gunther, he had yanked that ring off her finger and carried it because he considers it his, because he remembers having killed the dragon for it, but he doesn't remember having ever given it to Brunhilde because he doesn't remember Brunhilde. Of course, Brunhilde knows none of this because she doesn't know anything of this that's happened. She doesn't know that, she doesn't know that about the potion that has made him lose his memory, number one, and number two, she really for all she knows, she really was betrayed, because her request from Wotan was really just that a hero would awaken her. That doesn't necessarily mean a good hero. It could be, a heroic person is not necessarily doing the right thing always. And so I think that's what she's thinking. She's like thinking, oh gosh, Anyway, to cut to the chase, they all vow revenge on Siegfried, meaning Hagen, who knew what was going on all along, but still vows revenge. Gunther thinks he's been betrayed because Brunhilde says, oh wait, Siegfried was my husband, and he, basically she's implying that they slept together, which obviously they have. She says this in front of everybody. It totally embarrasses Gunther, and he feels like, I think he's lost his honor. So he gets pulled into this plot to kill Siegfried. So in the process of all this sort of overtaking of revenge that Brunhilde has had, she actually tells Hagen, he says, well, what's his vulnerable spot? And she's like, well, he doesn't really have any. And then she's like, oh yeah, he does, but in his back, because he's such a hero, he would never run from anyone. And so he would always stand and fight. So his back is unprotected because he's, a hero. So Hagen's like, good to know. Okay, so they all go out. So they're on this hunting party. Siegfried's like, he runs into the Rhine maidens. They like beg him for the gold again. He's like, no, it's my ring and I'm keeping it. And then hunting and Hagen and Gunther. Well, Hagen basically comes upon him, gives him a potion to reverse, so he reverse that other potion that made him lose his memory, so now he can remember Brunhilde. He does remember Brunhilde, but then Hagen stabs him in the back and he dies. So they take him back to the Gibichung house. Gutruna is distraught because she actually did love him, I think. She was kind of a pawn in all this, and this production I saw she portrayed this really well. She started out sort of as a sort of complicit, but then she kind of matures over the course of this opera, and by the end she actually was distraught that her husband was dead, and then she realizes what's happened, that he really wasn't her husband ever, that he actually was Brunhilde's husband originally, and so she's even more brokenhearted. But Brunhilde, as he's dead, she orders a funeral pyre built. In the production I saw, they actually used all this trash because in this ring really had an environmental message. So as the operas had progressed, each of the 4 operas, the environment had become more and more degraded. And by the time we get to the end of Götterdämmerung, the Rhine is dry. There's trash everywhere. It's it's dry and everything's dead. So the people, then the women, actually in the production I saw, the women of this manor village, they pick up they whenever Brunhilde orders a funeral pyre built for Siegfried, they get the trash from around the Rhine and whatever, and that's what they use. They also put the guns. They gather guns and throw the guns onto this thing, and then they light it. And Brunhilde then she gives the gold back. She tells the Rhine maiden she can have gold. She calls on Loja, the demigod of fire, to use this fire, take this fire. She tells the ravens to go and tell Loja this, take this fire and set Valhalla on fire. And she then jumps into the fire herself. And it is, at this production I saw, was just remarkably beautiful at the end. This music at the end is so emotional and so cool. And Valhalla burns then, and the way they did it in my production is these ashes of the heroes, which had been carried on kind of icons. So the way that the visuals were, it was this ash falling, and then it turns into rain. And then the Rhine actually overflows, and the water rushes out, so you get this sense of renewal. And then the production I saw had a young girl come out carrying a new ash tree, a plant like a seedling, and start to plant it as the people watch on, and the Rhine maidens start to sing in the river. So it was just beautiful. At the end, I actually cried. It was so cool. It was so beautiful. So I'm gonna run out of time. There's a couple of things I did want to bring up. Siegfried's death march, for one. Siegfried's death and funeral march. The music is so familiar. It's so iconic to me. I had remembered it from the movie Excalibur from the early 80s, but seeing it in context, hearing it in context with this opera was another really stirring, moving moment. And the conductor really came out with this piece, just really stood out from the opera. It was just so good. Oh, so good. And then the other real theme I wanted to mention before I completely ran out of time is the subjugation of women, I talked about that kind of in the earlier operas, and I think that this opera, this last opera, really shows this really well, because Brunhilde was just, the men in this opera, including Siegfried, who's this ultra-heroic type, and sort of ultra-masculine in a way. He's just overpowering, and that's all he cared about, was really just adventure and power, and he didn't really care who got in his way. And you know, I think that that was one of the problems that I have had with this character, both in Siegfried and in Götterdämmerung, is to understand this kind of like blatant heroic, just this sort of hyper heroic person who is so single-minded, to quest and to really, you know, using his power to subjugate others, and he does that. He does that with Brunhilde, and so it left me with a lot of questions like, oh, okay, well, you know, even if he did forget that he knew Brunhilde, he could still be a nice person, and he really wasn't. So there's that conflict. But overall, I loved it very, very, very much. Before I go, I just wanted to show this graphic of the. This is all the characters. So if you've lost track of who's who, as I've done these videos, you can see why. There's quite a lot of different characters and different lot of actors involved. The different lot of action and characters, and they each have a story to tell, which I didn't tell in my videos. But I encourage you, if you haven't seen The Ring Cycle, try to see it on DVD or stream somewhere, or even better, if you have an opera company near you that performs it live, it's well worth it's well worth it. It's just an experience that's well worth the time and money and effort to put in to go and see it. So I enjoyed it very much. So that's it. I'll end with that. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon. Bye.